Greetings, hi, and hello everyone. My name is Jason Petitfrère. I'm a speaker, I'm a podcaster, and my life's work is centered around allowing the world to meet the true you by helping you think, speak, and eventually live better than yesterday. We do this first by establishing a good reason why, a strong and powerful motivation to keep going when the going gets rough. Second, we need awareness and acknowledgement of what's holding us back. And third, we need scalable steps forward as a reliable bridge between who we are right now and who we need to be tomorrow and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. This, my friends, is how you go from stuck to thinking as, speaking as, and living as the true you. Feels good to be back. Greetings, hi, and hello everyone. My name is Jason, and I'd like to thank you so very much for joining me on yet another episode of the TRU-U podcast. The show where I do my utmost, my best, to inspire you and motivate you to not only think as, not only speak as, but to ultimately live as the true you. Quick story. As the inspiration for this episode entitled Myself. For the longest while, and for as long as I can really remember since joining the Navy, I've always felt like I was just perpetually tired. Just as much as I slept for hours and hours and hours on end, depending on how long of a weekend I had or how early I went to bed, I typically woke up tired, still exhausted, still spent. And it's not until I had A, left the military, and B, gotten married, that I discovered something thanks to my wife Hannah pointing out to me that throughout the night as I sleep, sometimes I stop breathing and partially choke. Or, and like, I don't know if convulsing is the right word. I might be making it sound more severe than it is, but I don't know if that's specifically what you'd call sleep apnea, but that is why I'm essentially setting up an appointment for a sleep study to figure that out. But I digress. I'm not sleeping the best for one reason or another. And it has to do with how my body is built, but also how it's functioning right now, how it's adapted over the years, and ultimately how I breathe as I sleep, and the different positions, how they affect my ability to breathe. Understanding myself in that manner, or this discovery of new information about myself, has helped me to understand why I still wake up tired, or why throughout the days, throughout the weeks, throughout the months, throughout the years thus far, I've been working with a limiter on. I can't imagine, for those of you listening right now, how frustrating it may be to find yourself not as focused as you think you should be, or not as energized as you think you should be, or not as motivated as you think you should be, not as in tune with your capabilities as you think you should be. That sounds very frustrating. Do you know that it isn't necessarily the way to fix it, but it is one of the first steps in being able to fix a problem that is there. And this method that I'm talking about is understanding yourself, learning about yourself, being curious enough about yourself. So today, with this episode, I'd like to inspire you and motivate you to speak to yourself and say, I want to know myself. It's an important task that I believe each and every single one of us should make it a point to undertake. Now, as with most of my recent episodes, I'd like to throw at you for consideration some really cool quotes that I found. One of them is pretty funny. The others are more so just thought-provoking. But either way, they all have to do with discovering more about yourself and the importance or the wisdom therein. So here we go. We'll wrap up with these quotes here. I'm going to do more than 3 because these were just really good and I like them. So I pray that it'll be edifying to those of you listening. Here we go. I'm going to start with D.H. Lawrence. They said, "You've got to know yourself so you can at least be yourself." And rapid fire interpretations here. This is all my own personal opinion. I'm not a doctor or some sort of subject matter expert in the field of psychology. I just like to think, and I like to get others to think. So here's my take on this. You've got to know yourself so you can at least be yourself. We all like to throw around the phrase, be yourself. Do you, boo, all that on social media and whatnot. But how can you truly accomplish that without truly knowing who you actually are? Where's the delineation between what you've been through and who you actually are? How much of that influences the makeup of your identity? And it's at that point, it's upon understanding that more deeply that you can truly be yourself. Anything short of that is, dare I say, inauthentic, in my opinion, or incomplete. Let's put it that way, incomplete, because I don't want to accuse you guys of just walking around as imposters of your own selves just because you haven't, sat down and truly written down who you think you are. I just think there's a bit of a disconnect between the mind and the manifestation that we see in the real world of the body and words and all that kind of stuff when you don't truly understand why you act the way that you act, why you feel the way that you feel when certain people say certain things. If you don't understand those quite yet, you are working, my friends, at a disadvantage. Get to know yourself. Which brings me to the next point, a quote by Confucius. He said, "The more you know yourself, the more you forgive yourself." I love this quote because it reminds me of the many, many, many times that I've been ridiculously harsh on myself for just, calling myself a failure or a klutz or a screw up, just being dissatisfied overall with my performance or my mindset in certain situations, and being impatient with the amount of mistakes that I've made in my life. But then, as I've sat with myself, and even with the help of a therapist or a counselor, I've been able to understand certain aspects of why I act certain ways, or why I'm prone to think certain ways, or why I'm predispositioned to feel certain ways about certain situations when others may have different reactions than mine. That all leads me to not only better understand myself, it leads me to have a greater pool of grace for when I feel like my emotions are out of control. It helps me to then gain a greater level of control ultimately on my reactions, because I can predict in the future, hey, I know that I don't like these sorts of situations, and I know that these sorts of people that I cannot avoid tend to bring about these sorts of situations that I don't like. Therefore, let me brace myself, and if it gets too much, let me step out, let me get away. And let me not beat myself up for having to get away, and thus forgive myself for that part of me that I may or may not like at the moment. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's move on to the next one, and I absolutely love this one by St. Augustine. They said, "People travel to wonder at the height of mountains, at the huge waves of the sea, at the long courses of rivers, at the vast compass of the ocean, at the circular motion of the stars. And yet they pass by themselves without wondering. All of that, just all the marvel and the majesty of this world that God has created, we make whole careers out of understanding those things or pursuing them. And yet the industry is, what is the right word, sparse? Or the interest is sparse, or the awareness is sparse as far as the importance of really taking a deep dive into understanding me, understanding you. It's important to be curious about who you are, because oftentimes you're going to be all you've got. Just consider that. Consider that. I mean, man, my brain that likes to put out disclaimers or takes words very literally does not like that sentence, because technically at no point are you really all you've got. You've always got God, or there's almost always somebody that you can reach out to. So bear with me. I do not mean that sentence literally. I mean it circumstantially, or how it feels in certain situations. Okay, cool. All right, last one. And this is kind of funny, but this is by Ann Landers. She says, know yourself. Don't accept your dog's admiration as conclusive evidence that you are wonderful. I like this for two reasons. One of which is that, yeah, it's true that typically dogs are just going to view you as wonderful no matter who you are, and love you almost completely unconditionally. That's why I love dogs. And I miss my Lovey. She passed away while I was in the military, which is pretty sad, but yeah, she was awesome. I got to tell you guys about her sometime. She was a light brown chow chow. Beautiful queen. Anyway, I love it also for the second reason, which is too often in an attempt at self-preservation, we try to view ourselves as better than we actually are in how we take on life. That's not everybody's plight, but sometimes, for those of us that may think of ourselves a little bit more highly than we should, we don't consider how important it is to understand the faults that we are born with, or the faults that we pick up along the way. That those aspects of our personality that are less than savory. How do we temper those? How do we bring those under control? How do we get rid of what we can get rid of? And how do we mitigate or plan around those dark sides of us that we can't get rid of? Because trust me, guys, no matter how many self-help books you read, there are going to be aspects of yourself that you don't like, that you will not be able to shake. Heck, even Paul in the Bible mentioned a thorn in his side that he asked God to remove, but God said, no, that his grace is sufficient. It creates a dependency on God. But, that's a whole different can of worms that I don't want to get into right now. Ultimately, the message is the same. Know yourself, guys. I hope this wasn't too long for you, but ultimately, I hope that you've picked up what I've put down. That it is important that you not just go out every day, go to work, make money, come back, pay bills, and rinse and repeat. Or that you not go out of your way to learn about someone else, to cater to someone else, and woo someone else. That's all well and good, but not at the expense of dating yourself sometimes, learning about yourself sometimes, caring for and being gracious to yourself sometimes, being honest with yourself sometimes. So guys, I'd like you to take a stand against quote unquote self-based ignorance. Don't be one of those people that fall into the pits and snares of their own folly because they refuse to take the time to study who they are and how they are. I don't want to be one of those people anymore, and that's why I'm talking about it. So, this is your opportunity to join me on this journey of not only thinking as and speaking as, but eventually living as the true you. Yeah, that's a good spot to end. Thanks for listening. Hi friends, Jason here. I want to thank you again for your time investment of listening till the end. It seriously means a lot, and I would further appreciate knowing what you think about the show through either the like button or your own comments and DMs about what impacted you the most in this particular episode or in any other. The point is, I don't want you to be shy about taking the step to communicate all that. Lastly, I invite you to stay connected to this life-giving community by following or subscribing on whichever platform you prefer to watch or listen. You'll also find more nuggets of gold sprinkled here and there by looking up @JasonPF_TRU-U on all socials. Again, that's JASONPF_TRU-U. Let's learn to think, speak, and live as our true selves together.